Hi, my name is Dorothea Trifunovic, and as part of my independent study unit, here is my novel presentation. The first section we'll be focusing on today is on the novel itself. The title of the novel I've chosen is We Are the Ants. The author who had beautifully written this novel is Sean David Hutchinson. A little insight on Sean was that he was born in West Palm Beach, Florida on the 1st of May in 1978. In college, he studied both medieval and Renaissance literature before abandoning his degree to work in IT, doing database design. Sean is now a full-time author living in Seattle. Some of his other works of literature include At the Edge of the Universe, The State of Us, The Five Stages of Andrew Brawley, Violent Ends, and more. The date this novel was published was in January 19th, 2016. I've chosen this novel for a multitude of reasons, but the main ones are because of the suggestion and because of the book description. At the beginning stages of this ISU, I was struggling to find an appropriate novel. I went through many unsatisfactory options before finally asking my cousin. She sees literature as a passion and has read hundreds of books. I decided to trust her judgment when she suggested this one, as it paid off in the end. With the book description, it intrigued me immediately. The back of the book quickly introduced me to the main character, along with some conflicts, as the modern writing style accommodated my wants. While doing a little more research and finding out that the genre was young adult fiction, I was practically set on choosing this novel. Henry Denton, an average teenager living in Calypso, Florida, has spent years being periodically abducted by aliens. One day, the aliens give him an ultimatum. The world will end in 144 days, and all Henry has to do to stop it is to push a big red button. Only, he isn't sure he wants to. After all, life hasn't been great for Henry. His mom is a struggling waitress held together by smoking addiction. His brother is a jobless dropout who just impregnated his girlfriend. His grandmother is slowly losing herself to Alzheimer's, and Henry is dealing with relentless bullying at school and the grief of his boyfriend's suicide. But, due to Henry's love of science, he decides to face the question thoroughly and logically and begins to look for pros and cons. In the bully, Marcus, who is his perpetual one-night stand. In the best friend, Audrey, who once betrayed him, and in the infatuating and mysterious boy, Diego, who walked into his life. Weighing the pain and the joy that surrounds him, Henry is left with the ultimate choice. Push the button and save the planet and everyone on it, or let the world and his pain be destroyed forever. The novel ends ambiguously, as it's never revealed if Henry had gotten another chance to push the button or not. But what is clear is that he decided to grow as a person and move on with his life, by remembering the past, living in the present, and writing the future. Now moving on to the second section of my presentation, the research topic. The topic I've chosen for the research portion is suicide bereavement. Reasons as to why I've chosen this topic is not only because it relates heavily to the theme of the novel, but because of its importance and how more people should acknowledge the severity of impacts that being bereaved by suicide can cause. My research topic relates to the novel, since it's a main theme showcased throughout the entire book. From start to finish, Henry always had the thought of Jesse lingering in his head. Chapter after chapter, he continued to show many factors and signs that indicate bereavement of suicide, such as development of psychological disorders, personality change, hiding grief and emotion, refusing to speak out, and not coming to terms with the events that had transpired. With so, this bereavement is what has guided many characters to make the decisions they made, and influences the plot greatly. Which is why I've considered suicide bereavement to be so important for the story, enough to make it my research topic. Sadly, in the world we live in today, suicide still continues to be a prevalent yet highly serious problem that permanently affects the lives of many. The majority of us will never be able to even begin to understand the victim's state of mind, but we can attempt to grasp onto the idea and acknowledge the severity of the suffering that precedes suicide, along with the pain left in its wake, known as suicide bereavement. These victims of suicide loss, typically family, friends, or mutuals, have no other choice but to go through a highly complicated grieving process due to the sudden nature suicide tends to have. With so, loss is nowhere near a piece of cake. A multitude of problems and questions arise that weren't so common before, the majority of which being negative, ranging from mental and physical problems, personality change, tedious grieving process, fear speaking out, desocialization, and more. Overall, the main goal I'm aiming for by providing you all this information is to raise awareness about the severity of those who are bereaved by suicide, and how damaging it could be for millions if we take no account of this topic. Survivors of suicide loss have no choice but to struggle with so many developed complications, ranging from health problems to shockingly huge behavioral and personality changes, which only intensifies this topic's importance and how we, as a society, should be more aware of the events that precede suicide for years to follow. Without understanding the causes, impacts, effects, and overall topic of suicide bereavement, understanding the novel itself and the decisions the characters take would be extremely difficult. The protagonist of the novel, Henry Denton, is a character who is not only the key to the book, but is clearly affected the most by the suicide of Jesse Franklin. His entire personality, thought process, and emotional state had changed, and without acknowledging it's all due to suicide bereavement, it'd be confusing to find another reason as to why these changes happen. Besides clarifying as to why the characters act the way they do, the topic of suicide bereavement also helps you understand the theme correctly. Many stereotypes are linked to those bereaved by suicide. So without educating yourself on the actual topic and only going off of stereotypes, your entire interpretation of the novel's theme can either be misleading, confusing, or completely incorrect. Thank you for listening.